Okay, so hopefully you guys have started looking at stuff. So some of these things like column A are just a sort of note-keeping, data management, identifier number, and we can sort of go around and look, and we have things like something that would perhaps make more sense to us. In this case, this is the country, the name of the country spelled out. And then the ISO or the simplified 3-character designation of that country. So okay, cool. So we have both sometimes like shorthand versions of things. Sometimes we have the full terminology of things. And I can see, I'm just glancing through. Okay, look. So I selected wildfires in North America. So I'm just checking, and yeah, okay, I got North America. If I had grabbed the incorrect data set, and I was looking over here, I might see Europe or Oceania or something like that, right? So, okay, so I'm just inspecting. Cool. I'm going over. I see some of the stuff where it says, this guy, like, what's that? I don't know. So I'd have to go check up that in the data dictionary. And I'm just going to keep going over. Now, because some events, an earthquake is like an earthquake, boom, and it's over and it's done. But other events, a classic might be a wildfire. It might start and it might go for a day or weeks or potentially a year or more sometimes, depending on what we're talking about. And so you'll note that they have both a start time and an end time. And then there's different ways of breaking down the time period. And in some cases, for example, this is how big the thing is, or how large is the magnitude of the thing. And because this is a data set that's going to encompass many different disasters, the units will change depending on the particular disaster. So in this particular, and this probably goes without saying, but just so maybe I skipped over this, just so we're on the same page. Every one thing is in a row. So one row is one event. So the incident in question is in the row, and the columns are all the different attributes, but we're talking about that one thing, right? So all the information needs to fit in this one particular row. And so in this case, magnitude is a general term. How big is it? And so all the magnitudes will be in there once we get to the full natural, or once you query more than just one type of disaster. And there might be volumetric stuff or other units. And so in this case, the standard unit for reporting the size of a wildfire is the final extent in square kilometers. Okay? See that? Okay, keep going over this. Okay, days, blah, 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 blah. How many people were, so then we have stuff that says, okay, in this case, this is the number of folks that were killed, directly killed. As we've mentioned already in our class, their disasters have long tails, meaning they start and then they can go for, the impacts can go for a long time. And so we acknowledge that. There are dissolved marriages and mental health struggles that people have, year, 2, 3, 5 years out, that's all real. But this is the primary estimate, right? So this is the main burning of the fire, right? So this is probably not going to be updated 5 years later with the number of suicides or something like that, right? So it is a limitation, but we have to have some standardization. So that's what we're doing. So we have the total number of deaths, and then the total number of folks that were injured, and the number affected. Wait, what did I say? Number affected, and the number of folks that were made homeless, and the number. And so affected might be maybe I lose my business. Okay, so I wasn't killed. I didn't get injured, but I was certainly harmed by this event, right? Or my school was destroyed, so I couldn't go to school or something like that. So that's affected. And then this is the number of folks that lost their housing as a consequence of that disaster. And this is total affected. So total effect is going to add up all that stuff. So anybody impacted in any way, shape, or form. So you guys probably either want to use the deaths or the total affected when you're talking about people that were impacted by this thing, although there is more breakdown. But here we start to see some of the complexity of this data set, right? So check it out. So like let's say, whatever this one is, I don't know what this one is, but this one in 1991, this had 2 people died and 300 people were homeless, and that should be 302, right? Can you guys all see this? Is this big enough? You guys want to make this bigger? Is that better? Yes, nay, yay, nay. Okay. All right. So here we go. So this was a fire in 1991, right? And we just said total number of deaths 2, right? Total number of injured, none. Total number of affected, none, or affected outside of deaths. I guess I would say that. Total number of people that were made homeless, 300. Okay. Total number of people affected, 300. That seems weird. Shouldn't that be like 302, right? So again, this is that pre-2000 data set. So it's still useful, still get insights, but maybe there's a few inconsistencies or some things that might not be, perfect. Okay, and then you'll see in some cases, like, can I find an example of this? Yeah, okay, so here's one. So this one, nobody was killed. Nobody was affected. Now, that could have been a case where there was a state of emergency declared, and maybe, thankfully, no one was hurt. But maybe the data was just, not so great or something. Okay, great. So that's people impacted. And then the other one I just want to call your attention to is over here. And so this is damage cost. And let's have a look right here. It's still kind of small. Can you guys see this? Well, it's not going to get any bigger, actually, because it's up there. Okay, so it says, I've clicked on my column AN, and it says insured damage. Then it says adjusted, right? So check it out. So this one here says insured damage, and then it says in thousands of US dollars. Everybody with me on that? So if it had a 1, it would be $1,000, right? When it says 1 here, it's actually representing 1,000. So you can choose how you want to do that in your visualization. You can leave it that unit and then just say the units are in thousands of dollars. Or it probably makes more sense to, before you graph it, to maybe put it in the actual number of dollars. So when you graph it, you could graph it as iterations of $10,000, and that's kind of hard to understand. So it's probably easier to turn it into just the full raw number, but it's your choice. Or maybe you want to make it into millions. The unit could be millions of dollars. Or maybe you want to make it the unit is billions of dollars or something like that. But realize that's what's going on here. But the first one is insured damage. So that is, what's this one? Let's find out what this guy is. This guy is 1918, okay? So in 1918, this particular event caused, what is that? That's 100,000, and then because it's in thousands, so that's $100 million. Everybody with me? But that's the price way back then. So the price we paid in 1918 is different, right? If we bought a loaf of bread in 1918, I don't know, a nickel or something, right? And then we pay for it now, it's like, $2 or $5 or whatever, right? So then we apply this inflationary index, the CPI, right here. And so that's what's been done here. So they've done it for you. So this is total. So if I look here, let's make it bigger so it's easier to see. So this is total damage raw number. This is total damage adjusted. Okay? And so this is going to be adjusted for the year that you downloaded the data set. Or I should say, no, because we won't have the 2025 yet, I don't think. So this will be adjusted to the most recent year that we've adjusted it. So this is probably in 2024 dollars. So if you wanted to graph this, you could. There's nothing wrong with that. But you would need to say this value is in 1918 or whatever it is dollars. But then the problem there is that's that event. And the very next event might be in 1920. Maybe the next one's in 1923. So it gets real complicated, right? So it's nice to standardize it so we have apples to apples comparison. And so that's what this column does. So that's what any of the adjusted numbers do for you. So it's all in the equivalent today's dollars, what it would cost. Cool? Okay. And there's some other things you guys can look at. But let me just show you guys a quick way that's a simple way to start to add stuff up. Okay, so now we have 1911, 1918, 1922, 1924. Okay, those are all one-offs, so that's not a problem. So if I were to graph this, real quickly, if I were to graph this, right? And sorry, let's do that. Let's do here. Let's do this real quick. What are we doing? We're doing. I told you guys to do costs that we're doing. Yeah. Okay. So if I did this, so let me grab these costs. And I go over here, just so it's easy to show you guys. Okay, so here's my costs, right? So let me make this bigger for you guys. Here's my costs for this. There was one wildfire in 1911 in North America, they said, that meet these criteria. 1918, there was one wildfire, they said. 1922, 44, right? So I could just grab these dudes and go graph them. Where is my guy? Right, and it kind of looks something like that. Move these guys so you can see this. Right? And I could add a line graph and I could do all that kind of stuff. So, okay, that's cool. But once I start getting into, like, in 56 is one off, 1970 there was one fire, 1980 there's one fire that meet the criteria, 85, and all of a sudden, oh, now it's 86, there's 2 fires. 91, there's 2 fires. 92, there's 3 fires. 94, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fires, right? So then we start getting, I can't just grab them and graph them because they're gonna kind of be apart, right? And so we want to know the total costs for the year. So what that would mean is I would want to add all, the 1918 would just be this number, the 1922 would just be this number, but then the 1986, I'd need to add those 2 numbers together, yeah? And the 1994, I need to add those guys together. Everybody with me on that? Okay. So there's various ways it is. We use pivot tables and various things, but a simple way that you guys should all know is just some basic Excel stuff. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go, oh, there's lots of columns. I'm getting confused. A couple different things I can do. One, this confuses people that haven't used Excel very much. So everybody look at the, firstly, everybody look at this. You got these numbers in these cells, yeah? So if I make it smaller, it's going to start rounding them themselves. So let's just stare at the first one here, 3.058105, yeah? So firstly, if I click on that cell and I look over here, this is the actual number. It's got all these decimal points, 3.058105048, right? But when I look at the cell, it's only showing me these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decimals to the 6 places to the right of the decimal. Yeah? And then as I squeeze the column smaller. Oh, starting around. Oh, starting around. Oh, starting around. Oh, starting around. It looks to us like the number is changing, but that's only for our visual convenience. If I still look up here, this number hasn't changed. Okay? And where we usually get problems is if we squeeze it so small that the program can't make it round or can't make it round. So like look at this 35 here, right? 35, okay, 35, 35. Now it shows a bunch of hashtags, right? A bunch of pound signs. And so a lot of times you guys this happens especially when we're transferring data. So if you're doing it and you give it to your bud and they open it on a Mac and they open it on a PC, or it was a Google Sheet that you brought, or something like that, people will oftentimes freak out. Oh, Dr. I lost the data, whatever. It's not lost. It's just the display. So if I come back here and I either double click on this column or I just click and drag it, I can see it's all there. And the reason I know it's still fine is if I click on that cell, and then again I go up here and look, I can see that that's what's really there. This is just a convenience trying to help me see it more simply. Cool? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys a one simple little tool that you can use, and then you can generate your own numbers. Okay, so again, one more thing. This guy, so I have variables in my top row. But as soon as I start to scroll down, like, oh wait, which was it? Was it AM? Was it A? Like what? Right? So there's a couple different things, but one I can do is I can come up here and I can go to my window, and this will be the same if you're on a PC or a Mac. It's just slightly, maybe a slightly different space, but all the functionality works regardless of platform, okay? And a lot of these things are also similar on Google Sheets. Excel is by far the more powerful tool. Excel is the one you want to be using because it gives you more options and can do more things. But if you only have access to Google Sheets today, that's fine. For this basic stuff, that's fine. But just realize that if I have a choice, I'm always going to use Excel because it's going to give me more options, it's going to give me more power, it's going to work more smoothly, that kind of thing. And essentially, Excel came first, and Excel is the reason why we have Mac computers, because one of the first programs they had was this thing that became a program called Lotus 123. And when they couldn't get it sold, they went and started showing accountants and people like that. And people were like, oh my God, the spreadsheet. All it could do is like add, subtract, divide, very basic stuff. But it was like, oh my God, it's going to save me weeks and weeks worth of work of hand tallying data. And that's really what launched the modern computer program, or personal computer in a popular sense. So Excel has been growing for like 40 years, right? 45 years or so. Google Sheets has only been around for about 15 years. And so Google Sheets basically borrowed most of its approaches, ideas, codes, menus directly from Excel. They just basically licensed it. So there's pretty much nothing that Google Sheets can do. I'm sure this is probably wrong. There's probably something, but there's basically nothing that Google Sheets can't do that Excel can't do, and there's a lot that Excel can do that Google Sheets can't do. So given a choice, I'm always going to use Excel, but you guys can choose to use what you feel is convenient. But anyway, here I come down, and I can either do a split or a freeze pane. And now as I go down, in this case, I froze this guy, so now I can be moving this and this, and these guys get frozen. I can do it in a whole bunch of different ways of splitting or doing freeze panes. But the other one what I'll just do is I'll say, okay, this AP is my adjusted damage. Dr. Ray said he wanted us to look at the costs of the disaster. So just so I might confuse myself, so I'm going to click on, and what I've done is I've clicked on the if I click on the cell, I'm selecting the cell. If I click on the top of the column, I'm going to select the whole dude, right? The whole shebang. And I'm just going to click my color, and I say, I don't know. What do you guys colors like? Peach, yellow, what color do you guys like? Peach, okay, peach. So I just kind of flag that visually, so it's easier for me to see when I start moving around. That just makes some more sense to me. And all I've done is I've gone down here, and I've just typed in these years, 1900, 1901, 1902, 3, and I can show you a quick way to do that, fast. But in any event, I have these guys here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, program, do me a favor, and every time, okay, let's flag the start year. Let's make that guy Peach 2 so it's easy for me to see it. So every time, again, the row is the data, the row is the replicate. So the row is the entry, is the event. So I'm saying every time I get to a row where the fire started in 1911, I want you to grab that number and add it. And if I have another one, I want you to add those two together. If I have another one, I want you to add those three together, and so on and so forth. Okay? So I'm going to use a statement called, in this case, we want total. So not the average, but the total. So I'm going to use a thing called SUMIF. So everybody watch this, and then I can show you guys if you guys get stuck. But okay, so Z is my target thing. Z is the area of my criteria, my logical test. Does this equal this? And then where am I? And then AP is where I'm going to do my adding or do my summing. Okay. So it looks like this. That sounds kind of confusing. It's very simple. So I'm just going like this. I'm going to type an equal sign. An equal sign is code for Excel to do some math. Okay, so do something. And there's a ton of equations. There's all kinds of options if you guys want to get into this and play around and get familiar. There's all kinds of powerful tools you can use and calculations you can do. And so I'm going to do SUMIF. And so now that I type this in, I see there's actually a few different options. There's SUMIF, there's SUMIF-S, okay, blah, blah, blah. But SUMIF is the one I want to use here. And so I go SUMIF, and then watch this. I hit boom, and it gives me, right here, it gives me some prompts in case I'm silly or I've been up all night and I'm super tired and I don't remember what to do, right? So it's going to help walk me through this. And so if you guys are in the back and can't, unfortunately I can't make this get bigger on the screen, but if you're in the back and can't see this, it says SUMIF, and then it says range, comma, criteria, comma, sum range. So in this case, there's thing, comma, thing, comma, thing. So the first one is the range, and this is the logical test that I'm going to apply to my stuff. And so so that is, let me go over here. So I'm going to click on this cell, and I could just do that one cell. It would just do stuff for me that one cell, but that's not really going to work, right? I want to look over my whole range of data. So after I've clicked that one cell, I'm going to go to the next end of the range, hold my shift key down, and then click the other cell. And that's going to allow me to select the entirety of that zone of stuff, right? Okay, come back here. All right, cool. So that was my range. Okay, then I hit the comma. I'm going to be on to the next thing. That's my criteria. I'm just going to click the next cell over, which in this case is the year 1900. And what that's going to do is going to say, hey, Excel, do a bunch of math, and anytime any cell in my range equals this, so equals, in this case, the year 1900, then I want you, if that's the case, then I want you to do the last thing. So I'm going to hit the comma sign, and I'm going to come up here. Again, I'm going to click the bottom of my range, scroll up to the other end, hold the shift key down, click again, and that's the error it's going to be doing the adding, and I'm going to hit the close parentheses to finish the equation and hit return. And it said, no money was spent on wildfires in North America in 1900, right? So we knew that was the case because we saw our oldest place was 1918, okay? So I'm going to show you one thing, and it's going to be wrong, and then we're going to fix it, but let's have a look. So check this out. Now, the neat thing about Excel and these tabular data management programs is it does relative, the language is relative. So right now, essentially, it looks like I typed in these cells and these other cells. What Excel actually is doing is Excel is saying, hey, go to column, whatever, 8 columns to the left and do it there. And go from, two rows above me to 50 rows above me. So it's relative. So as I copy this and move it off to the right and hit paste, it's going to be weird. It's not going to be anything that makes sense. Similarly, if I do this and paste it down, it's going to start to work, and then we're going to hit a problem in a second. So can you see this right now? This first one was from Z2 to 134. Everybody with me? But then I copied the whole cell and put it down. Now it's Z3 to 135, and the next one is Z4 to 136. It's shifting itself down, and I don't want that, right? Because there might be some data in that top of the row that I'm missing. So therefore, the last little thing I'm going to do before I paste it down is I'm going to tell it, look, dude, the 2 and the 134, that's absolute. When I move the cell around, I don't want you to make that relative. I want you to always go to row 2 through row 134. And I do that with a $sign. So if I put a $sign before the letter or the number for either the row or the column or for both, that's going to lock it in. And even though I might copy the cell and move it around, those parts will not change. So I'm going to come up here and I go, okay, look, dude, I'm going to put my cursor right in front of the 2 and put a $sign. And right in front of the 134 and put a $sign, and then to this other guy over here, this 2 as well, $2 sign, 134 $sign, and now it's rock and roll. Now I'm done. So that sounds like a lot of steps. It's actually will go pretty fast. Then if I hit copy, and I come here, and so I select the place I want to copy it to, and I want to copy it all the way down to here, hit shift, boom, and then I hit command paste. There's my answers. So there's that 1918 cost, there's the 1922 cost, 47. As we start to get more recently, we're going to start getting more consistent numbers. And it looks like 2024, I suspect they haven't finalized the data, right? Which is why it looks like that. So they're probably still working on 2024. So maybe we want to just go to 2023 then for our figures. Does that make sense? Yay, nay? Okay, so that's the SUMIF. So that's a basic function that'll work in anything. The most simple computer program in Google Sheets or whatever, if you're in Bangladesh logging onto a computer, or if you're in a fancy New York consulting firm, it'll work for you wherever you go. So let's just review. So I went here, and I decided that I have, in some years, no data, some years, one wildfire, some years, many wildfire. But my question was, how have wildfire costs changed over time? So I need to therefore add up all the fires from any one year. And so that's what I did. So I went here and I told it, hey, Excel, here are my years, 1900, da, 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 da. And then we used the SUMIF to go and look in one column. And if we met that year, then to look in the other column and add up whatever's in that column.